Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're discussing data compliance, specifically data compliance involving chatbots, which is really a growing area with a lot of questions these days. To discuss that, I'm joined by a major industry expert. With me is Ajay Bhatia, Global Vice President and General Manager of Digital Compliance at Veritas. Ajay, thank you so much for joining us today.
James, thank you for having me here today.
It seems clearly we're in a period of rapid growth and change in the world of chatbots. We know that generative AI is coming on strong with the launch of ChatGPT last fall. I think there's more going on than people can even keep up with. And then, of course, there's the risks to the data that all those mechanisms and platforms and software applications are creating. What do you see as the key risks to companies in terms of chatbot-related data compliance?
James, you said it right. I mean, chatbots undoubtedly have received a lot of attention over the past few months. And although these are still in a research review phase, many companies are seeing employees turn to these conversational AI tools to streamline their jobs. However, there's a high risk of incorrect information being provided with what appears to be a high confidence level. Then, to overcorrect this, employees may start training the model with actual or sensitive company data. And that's definitely a breach for compliance, privacy, and security reasons. And if it's done within the company's environment, then an actual record is created, archived, and retrievable. So legal risk increases from a further proliferation of that information. And there's also vertical specific risk for regulated firms, such as financial services. Candidly speaking, financial advice from a robot can be more dangerous versus, simple shopping tips.
Right.
So a lot of firms now understand that the risks can far outweigh the productivity benefits until we regulate these kind of tools. And for example, just last month, Amazon warned its staffers against sharing any code or confidential information about the company with ChatGPT. So to kind of sum it up from my view, two major risks for corporations. Employees sharing sensitive information with a chatbot that may then store intel for future responses, and a breach of data privacy and security. And then using that chatbot generated information for internal distribution when information may not be accurate or even contain biases.
I hadn't thought of that employees are actually feeding sensitive company information into the chatbot. I mean, I could see there's about several different problems with that, one of which we don't know where that chatbot is going to go, and we don't know how that information is going to be spit back out and in what sort of form. Do you think, is that it's actually a reasonably widespread practice, or is that more isolated, if you can guess?
Well, on a personal level, I think if I use ChatGPT to create some bedtime stories for my kids, that's fine. But if, we're talking about feeding in intelligence into a chatbot to be able to drive an outcome for a certain project for a company. And that is a concern, and it's starting to become a little bit more ubiquitous in the corporate world, yes.
So what advice do you give companies? Obviously, I think it's one of these situations where the executives are not even sure which way to turn because the problems occur at many different levels. But if you would give advice to companies in terms of remaining compliant as these advances occur, what advice would you give?
I think it comes down to managing data in a manner that increases its value and reduces its risk quotient. If firms don't do that, then evolving changes in regulation can be a challenge to profitability in the coming years. We already know that more than 70% of the office workers around the world admit to sharing sensitive and business critical company data. So companies now need to monitor how many employees and how are they sharing, handling, and storing that different type of data, such as personally identifiable information, or PII as we call it, health, financial, and proprietary information, to ensure then compliance with data privacy regulation and internal policies. So I think strategically, companies could implement maybe 3 tactics to gain visibility into their data and then set them up for long-term success. Number one would be, what is it and where is it? So identifying, categorizing dark data. On average, more than half of a company's data is dark based on what we understand. And aside from, costing above maybe $30 million a year just in storage burden, dark data poses a significant risk to a company's compliance efforts.
Just to interrupt, I'm sorry. Can you define dark data for us? Because I'm not sure everyone knows what dark data is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So data that you would not know exists may be information hidden in an image, audio, or video generated by some of the newer collaboration tools like Zoom or Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I would say, even though we're generating more than 500 exabytes a day as humanity, less than 10% of that gets classified and categorized, regardless of whether it's structured or unstructured. So the reason that companies want to be able to try and identify and categorize it, because they want to know what is redundant, they want to know what is relevant, they want to know what is relevant and inactive, as well as what is relevant and active. And that last piece of information is what will drive intelligence for the corporation on its journey towards, fulfilling the stakeholders' responsibilities. So that's where I think number one is that data, the dark data, could include PII. Mm-hmm. And if you're familiar with that, that should only be identified via transcription or subsequent classification activities. Now, when you get to classification, that brings me to my second point, which is the concept of automating a classification system. So, like I said, if we're producing more than 500 exabytes per day, then to appropriately manage and categorize all of the data that enterprises collect and generate, they definitely need to implement automation to manage that data through its life cycle. Mm-hmm. And then the last part is, it's not just an IT or legal team responsibility. You have to be able to democratize data. And by that, what I mean is, when you've got shifting global compliance regulations, any part of a business can be at risk of failing to comply. So individuals outside of the IT team should be able to classify their own content, then which can then be vetted by compliance and data officers. So the three things I would say are, be able to identify and categorize their dark data, automate the classification system, and then democratize that data so then you can drive the right decisions for the company.
It seems the idea of democratizing the data has enormous power, and it allows many staffers at various different levels to sort of put their hands on the wheel, so to speak. But isn't the idea of democratizing data sometimes at odds with the idea of compliance? Are those things directly in friction with each other, or not necessarily?
If you have the right policies and you manage the outcome in a way that you're trying to drive the risk down, then it's possible. And it does happen with solutions that a lot of companies in the world offer to be able to go drive that.
Okay, so executives should not necessarily have a knee-jerk of fear when they hear the term democratizing data.
No, because at the end of the day, data is ubiquitous. It's not contained to, if you look at from a geopolitical standpoint, you've got data residing in Asia, you've got data residing in Europe, in the US, and some of it is online, some of it is on-prem. How do you ensure that you're in compliance with, for example, local regulations within that region or data sovereignty, but at the same time are able to then assess, analyze, and create a unified data lake and be able to view it at scale to drive intelligence for the company? So you do want that democratization, but then you also have to have the right systems in place to be able to meet the regulations.
All right, well, let's take a moment and drill down into the Veritas offerings. I mean, how is Veritas addressing the digital compliance needs of its clients? I mean, what is the Veritas advantage?
Yeah, I think, as a company, we recognize the multitude of operating environments, communication platforms, and productivity tools, even including chatbots, that can make compliance and governance more demanding. So at Veritas, we like to believe that we help bridge that data complexity with the regulatory complexity with a unified platform that drives every aspect of the compliance journey, all the way from capturing the data from any source, whether it's Zoom, Teams, messages, chat, video, audio, YouTube, Amazon, Box, Dropbox, all more than over 125 different sources, to then contextualizing it for actionable intelligence by classifying it, identifying it, and then being able to discover and archive against that data in a very secure, I would say, privacy compliant and data sovereign manner. So Customers use our unified cloud platform on compliance to address their security, privacy, and governance requirements, regardless of whether that data resides on-prem or in the cloud. It's a very ubiquitous kind of an experience to be able to control how that data is being utilized and accessed and being acted upon. So some examples of the power of our platform are in regulated industries such as financial services, healthcare, and other verticals. If you and I were, broker traders with a major financial institution, then that financial institution is required as per, if in the US, it's required as per the SEC FINRA regulations to be able to reconstruct every trade that you and I engage in. Now that means being able to monitor our emails, being able to monitor our calls, being able to monitor things that are outside of the company's environment. For example, if I was to go to a social media platform and express my advice there, that would also be something that they would have to be able to go ahead and encompass in that purview of that employee. Now, the other example is, again, we're on a call right now. I may say something, your face may contort. The sentiment analysis in the software says, James has a negative sentiment on this topic. Let's go take a look at that audio file, transcribe it, process some hit highlighting on those words. And lo and behold, Ajay said, this thing at 4 minutes past the discussion that potentially violates workplace harassment policy for this company. Let's decide how we want to be able to act against that data. So the power of the platform is both on a risk-based perspective as well as a data intelligence value perspective to be able to drive that comprehensive compliance journey.
I think I realize I better not let my face contort because we will need to do some serious data digging. But I get your point. It's a very sophisticated idea that the platform would actually dig into what's going on at that level. That's really, really intense. What I find most curious is the future of chatbots and compliance, because obviously chatbots are so much in their infancy right now. Those primitive little chatbots that we deal with now, I think are going to become far more human and far more engaging in the years ahead, which means there's going to be torrents of data flowing into them, far more data than there is now. So, which raises the compliance issue. So, what do you see for the future of chatbots and compliance? It's an area that's going to be a lot of excitement about, interest in, a lot of investment in. What milestones can we expect?
Fair enough. I think, with chatbots, we want to be able to deliver general intelligence with high reliability and safety. But it's still a nascent field. And like we said, it needs to be regulated for mitigating the compliance risk. The CTO of OpenAI, Mira Murati, in an interview with Time herself says, AI chatbots need to be regulated, and it's not too early for policymakers to be involved. And she even acknowledged that it makes up facts at this point in time. Again, it's in a research review phase. So with rumors of a federal compliance bill in the works, we can expect that laws will continue to evolve as much as technology does. And expectations will start to become a little bit more homogeneous and uniform for businesses across the United States. It's in a few pockets at this point in time, but with that federal bill, the expectations for businesses across the nation would be more uniform. And then at the same time, I think AI continues to grow smarter and more advanced. And then with that comes an additional layer of complications, especially as we incorporate this technology into existing messaging systems or even collaboration and work-focused platforms like Teams. And then last but not least, I would say it's possible that chatbots like ChatGPT could be used to help facilitate malicious cyber activity, such as writing phishing emails or helping to compile malware. And the security threat here is likely to evolve, especially as the AI receives more information from future inquiries, right? And my own view on this is you don't want your search to have a personality, right? We're blurring the lines between facts and opinion. The conversational nature is what gives us a sense of confidence in the generated response. At the end of the day, every person may end up with their own unique version of the truth. And then that's where the implications are immense for compliance and legal risk for companies. And it goes beyond the individual himself or herself.
You made a really interesting point, the middle one about how the AI is growing and possibly the chatbots will get more sophisticated. I can imagine a scenario where, I mean, the nature of AI is to improve over time with only limited human assistance or even not with human assistance. So we don't know, but possibly there could come a day where our chatbot is saying some things because the algorithm has so grown that we're surprised that chatbot is saying those things and we couldn't anticipate it. So I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I guess monitor the chatbots, or maybe I mean, we hope the chatbots will not rebel against us. Is there an answer to that, or is it just that's going to have to deal with that when it comes?
You know, I'd like to expand that beyond chatbots to generative AI and conversational AI. I think generative AI already has a lot of applications. The example that I just, talked about with sentiment analysis and topic mining and being able to do AI and ML at operations at scale to be able to drive those outcomes for businesses is different from, the conversational AI aspect of it, right? So Chat GPT at this point in time has cleared some medical entrance exams, has cleared a Wharton, MBA program. And so it's kind of interesting to see where that frontier is going to be. But as always, I think you go through a funnel of technology and technological innovation where there's hundreds of different concepts at play, and we embrace them, and through that gets filtered what actually becomes the mainstay for a lot of things. And that's a lot of that's in effect a way how Silicon Valley has evolved. And I think this frontier is yet to be assessed. But this time, I think policymakers and regulators should walk hand in hand rather than wait for something to mature.
That would certainly be the best case. It sounds like a good idea for sure. Ajay, I think you said it. It's fascinating. I look forward to watching the sector as it evolves, and I know you'll be right there on top of it. Thank you so much for sharing your insight today.
I appreciate the time, James. Thank you. Thank you so much.